How's it going? My name is Brent from Encore PPF and Tint, and today I'd like to bring back an old video, and I'm just going to be kind of adding the audio in now. This is a video that I took. I probably recorded this video over a couple years ago, so it's one of my early ones as far as recordings go, and I was not talking during the video. But so what we've got here is a Chevy Corvette, and I will put somewhere on the screen the year of it. What I'm going to do, first I laid the material out on the vehicle, and now what I'm going to do is tack this material to the inside of the wheel well. So I'm still tacking to the bumper, it's just around the edge and in the wheel well part. And what that's going to allow me to be able to do is put a ton of stretch on this and not have a stretch line on the side of the bumper. So, you know, if you were to tack out in the bumper anywhere, put that stretch that this is going to take to get this on here, then you would definitely have stretch marks. You can also see here that I'm tacking to the fender. And then now what I'm doing is I'm taking a little bit of soap solution and I'm making sure that nothing is pre-tacking to the bumper at all, other than the part that I tack down behind into the wheel well. Alright, so let's go ahead and do this crazy stretch. So from this angle, when I'm installing it, I'm able to see that I've got plenty of stretch and that I've eliminated all the fingers around the headlight, as well as majority of the fingers on the bottom of the bumper. We're going to bring it around. You see there that I'm holding the material in place with my knee. And then I'm just going to continue to make adjustments until I get all those fingers worked out on the side that I'm on. I got a mouthful of squeegee. Here's a little tack solution. And so what I'm going to start doing here is actually just tacking directly to the bumper. This is a lot of stretch, just a lot of stretch. You know, whatever your slip solution is, add some extra soap to it, because you're really going to need this material to be able to move around. And with this amount of stretch, especially right there in the center, it's going to start tacking. Because of all the pressure. So the middle there will start to tack because of all the pressure that's on it from the tension. So this is my friend Nathaniel. He is going to stand in front of the camera for just a second there. We went ahead and skipped a little section of the video because he was just standing in the way. If you want to watch him stand in front of the way, you can go back and pause it. So now I've got a good tack there on the side of the fender. I'm sorry, on the side of the bumper. And we're just going to start making adjustments to the rest of this material here. So what we want to do is eliminate any pre-tacking. So I'm going to pull the material back, get plenty of more soap underneath there. You can see that I'm spending a lot of time spraying my hands down. And the reason for that is because I want to make sure that I don't have any contamination on my hands that I'm going to leave underneath the material here. There we go. I got that to break loose, which is great. And that will eliminate everything that we need to eliminate for pre-tacking in that area. So early on, I mean, he had no idea he was standing in front of the camera there. Now he knows when he comes over because I've been doing it for so long that he stays out of the way of the camera. Alright, so I'm just checking for positioning, make sure I've got good coverage on the top into the where the hood area, so I can wrap that in. Good coverage on the bottom, as well as the right there around those headlights. I'm not pulled down too far so that I'm going to leave a gap on that top edge. Go ahead and start tacking down the center. And so the gloves that I have on right now are something that you will not normally see me wearing those, but they are a great tool if you're going to be doing a huge stretch like this, or you want to get more grip on the material. Rubber gloves really help you hold on to the material tight. So from there, I was just working from the area I stuck on the side of that bumper, and I'm working my way out towards the center. You can see I'm keeping a little tension on the top. I pulled up, and what that helps with is to get rid of the lines that are going from left to right across the front of that bumper. If you look at the other side there, you can see those lines that I'm talking about. Now I'm tacking to the bumper on the side there, and then we'll go ahead and work our way back out towards the center again. I know this is an old vehicle. It's probably not going to be something that you're going to find in your shop, but this is a great example of stretching, and then this whole thing is, being cut by hand. I mean, that's a heck of a stretch. There's not too many vehicles that take a stretch of that magnitude. So you can see there that I lifted the material up and I let a little bit more sink in to around that, I'm going to call it a marker light on the side there. And that'll just help when we go to trim that, so there's not so much tension in that area. There's going to be a ton of tension in that area, but we will be able to wrap all the way to the light because we let that concave in there back further towards the light. You can see I'm moving fairly quick, and that's just because I don't want anything to be pre-tacking, because I don't want to pull this back up. We're trying to get this on there with no stretch marks or distortions in the adhesive. So here we go again with the lifting up just a little bit. Apparently I got a little pre-tacking there, or maybe a little bit of debris underneath the material. When you're doing these Corvettes, it's really nice to have the emblem removed. It's so hard to work around that emblem, and you are going to end up with distortions around it, almost always. Unfortunately, because this is such an early video, I do a lot of standing in front of the camera myself. So later on in this video, we do the license plate cover, which has the words Corvette written in it, which are recessed. And I show you how to make a stencil, cut all that stuff out, and apply that as also. That'll be later on here in the video. So I'm just trying to get everything squeegeed out as much as possible on the face of the bumper. Tacking everything down that I can. So you can see there, I'm testing that tension around that side marker light. And let's see if I decide to, I decide to let a little bit more material contour into there so that it's going to be easier when we trim that to get full coverage in there. So that's just to get rid of those lines that are going from left to right, a little bit of stretch on the bottom there. Make sure to keep the top of the material nice and wet for squeegeeing. That way your squeegee doesn't grab and try to move the material, or your squeegee doesn't stop on the material and leave a distortion in the adhesive. Alright, so that must be an area where I'm pulled up off of the fender and then sprayed some tack solution underneath there, and then I'm going ahead and squeegeeing the bumper off, and I'm squeegeeing into the recess between the bumper and the fender, and then I'm holding, and that by tucking that material into that little recess, it'll help hold it in place and keep it from continuing to pop up. So along the top here, it looks like I've got a little bit of material that's popping up. It's not quite sticking to the top yet, so I'm going to add some tack solution in there, and it looks like use a swipe and hold method in order to get that to stay down. Yeah, so we're just trying to get it off the face, and so I'm just wrapping right over that edge, and then that is somewhere you can leave the material hanging and then come back to later and finish the job. So this one you can see a little bit better where I'm pulling it off of the surrounding panels, and then we're going to put some tack solution in there and then tuck it into those gaps between the two panels. I'm not sure, but it might have been a good idea to actually open, turn those headlights on and see if I could have left them in the upright position. That might have been helpful right here. So you can see with the one finger I've got the material tacked down in a spot, and I like where it's stuck, so I'm using my finger to hold it down there for a few seconds in order to make sure that it stays stuck down right there. So I'm lifting the material there, and while I'm tucked into that recess between the two panels, I'm lifting the material off of the fender and allowing it to tuck even further into that recess between the two. If you've never done one of these, kind of hope that you don't ever have to. It's a real test for sure. Trimming off some excess here. Hopefully you guys will find this video helpful. I know it is a little bit boring and it's a little bit slow. Well, and maybe it's just boring to me. But hopefully it's beneficial and will, be something useful for people to watch. So what I'm doing right now is wrapping this in to the wheel well around that corner. I got my focus face on. Look like I'm irritated a little bit. My wife tells me that's my focus face. This bumper definitely takes a lot of concentration, that's for sure. Especially with it being that it's been so many years since I touched one of these. It's been a long time. So what do you guys think in these areas like this where it's just silence? Do you think some music is helpful, or just go ahead and let the silence be what it is? I think I'm stretching my back right there. I think I'm getting a little bit sore from sitting on the ground. I'm what, 45 now, so I must have been about 43 right there, and there was some times there where I had some back issues that I was having to do a lot of stretching and things for in order to get back all my mobility. So I believe on the other side of the vehicle I do get do a better job of moving the camera up a little closer, or I'll do that here coming up shortly. So what we're going to do now is kind of cut out the center of this and relieve some of the tension on the material so that I can tuck it into that light. When you have a lot of tension on a piece of material like this, it is a great idea to do all of your edges should be circles or U-shape, and not leave any straight lines, because the straight lines, if you pull back on it like I'm about to do a little bit here, you can tear the material a lot easier if it's a straight cut versus having like a turn in it. Alright, so I'm just kind of checking out, seeing how much material I can actually remove and still be able to cover the full bumper up to that light. Get a little tack solution in here. It's hard to say, I don't really remember, but I'm pretty sure I'm actually running into the light here with this material, and then I'll have to come back and give it a final trim later. A little more tack solution, and then I'll be able to do kind of what I was just doing there, where I squeegee to the very edge of the material where it runs into the light and then hold. And like I said, there will be some better footage of this coming up here. So I'm pushing into that recess on that corner. It's a little bit of a tight corner, so I'm pushing that down with my finger, and then I'm squeegeeing all around my finger with the squeegee, and my finger's holding the material in place, which helps keep it from popping up, and then squeegeeing out the rest of the tack solution away from my finger. So those areas will be a little bit difficult, especially if you do have some excess material and it's running into that light. But you should be able to get it down and get it to stick down. Looks like I'm going to try trimming some of the excess away, which will definitely help it stick down in that corner better. Looks like I got a little, probably maybe a little air pocket or something stuck underneath the material there. So I took my blade and kind of tucked it in between the bumper and that light and pulled back on it. So it was either a little bit of moisture or air left behind. I think I'm about to move the camera. Yep, there we go. Terrific. That'll give you a much better view of some of the work that's getting done here. Got the tack solution in there. We're going to go ahead and wrap into that light. So somewhere in this video, maybe at the very end, I'll show you a picture of when we removed the paint protection film from this bumper. It took so much of the paint off. Probably 60% of the paint, I think, came off with the paint protection film. It was a terrible, terrible paint job. And so he was having it repainted. And it's the most paint I've ever popped off a vehicle ever. Although I was pretty certain it was going to pop off, so we were prepared for that, and it didn't really matter because it was getting repainted anyway. Alright, so I'm going to push it down with my finger, and then again work around my finger and squeegee out all of that tack solution. Go ahead and dry that edge out. That'll also help keep it from popping back up. Alright, so let's take care of this vent area. Now I'm going to run my cut closer to the top by far. It's just enough so that it rounds under, and then that leaves us a bunch of excess material to lay onto the bottom part that you can actually see when you're standing in front of the vehicle. I'm kind of trying to decide where I'm going to cut, how I'm going to cut, where do I want coverage, things like that. You know, a lot of vehicles like the Teslas, like I already know exactly where I'm everything's happening. So I've already got that all figured out. On a vehicle like this, after it's been so many years, you forget majority of that stuff. Alright, so because that's such a deep recess there, we're definitely not going to be able to do this without some relief cuts. And so I'm just trying to figure out where to put those. And what's best placement. There we go. I was kind of wondering what I was doing there. Definitely a diagonal cut will work better there than doing something straight up. That'll give us some more coverage on the bottom. And on the inside, on the left there, that will allow us to wrap in more. What do you guys think? Is that where you would have put those relief cuts? We'll see how this looks in the end here. It came out just fantastic though. Customer was incredibly happy with it. Once again, holding that area down with my finger and then squeegeeing around it. It's good. So I want to make sure and get the face covered of the bumper, and then we're going to get another relief cut in here. So we'll put a little stretch on this. Basically right now I'm kind of holding down with my fingers, and right where those relief cuts end, I'm making sure that those areas are sticking down really well. That way when we pull on this, put a little tension on it in order to wrap it into that recess, we're not creating little fingers at where the relief cuts end. So that's definitely going to go back there and hang off over the edge. I'll have to come back and trim that, or maybe I'll do a little trimming before. So as I'm watching this, I think that's probably a good area to bring out the towel and dry up some of that tack solution, and that will really help that the end of the relief cut stick down better. You see there, it's a little bit easier if you put a little tug on it towards the back, and that'll make it easier to squeegee that out. Now we'll add some tack in there to get rid of that slip solution that I just put on there. I'm just going over and over and over these parts just to make sure that we're not leaving any moisture behind and that everything is staying stuck down. So it looks like that area actually got tucked in a little bit with the light, and so I'm going to go ahead and keep it pushed down with that towel. So the material that I'm using on this bumper is actually made by Solar Guard. It's their Clear Shield Pro. It's probably the Hydro, and it does not tear easy. So when you see me leave those straight lines in there and then I'm pushing on it, this material, not tell you anything really, it does not tear easy. So it's something that you can leave a little bit more of those straight relief cuts in there instead of putting like a U shape at the end. It's just a very tough material to tear. So we're getting some tack solution in there. Gonna go ahead and start putting this down into place. Some of these areas it's just really small. It's very difficult to get in there and get this squeegeed out without leaving moisture behind. You know, in a lot of these newer vehicles, you have more of like sharp angles and sharp edges and things like that than you do with this one. Everything's very rounded. That will definitely adjust the install. I don't know if you guys can hear that spray or that funky noise. Let's see if you can hear it. That's me spraying down the GoPro while I'm recording this because it's going to overheat. It's just sitting on a desk. When I'm out riding and things on my quad, I don't have any problems with the GoPro overheating, so it definitely likes some air movement. So you can see I'm making some trims here, cutting off some of that excess material. That'll save me from having to do it later. It'll also, because there's an edge now to the material that isn't hanging over the back of the bumper, it'll help that tack down and stay stuck down. Anytime you're hanging over back behind the bumper or hanging off the bumper, you definitely are going to have more of an issue with the material popping up. All right, on to the other side. Hopefully this side gets a little bit better angle. So I've kind of already figured out on the other side where I want my cuts, so I'm basically just going to do the same relief cuts as I did on the other side. A little tack solution in there, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap this top part. So I'm really trying to find like I'm trying to get some coverage on this bottom part of the bumper where it goes into that recess, but I'm also trying to get the side some coverage as well. So it's kind of a fine line. It's like, where do you put more coverage? And it kind of depends on, when you're sitting there looking at it, where you think the rocks are going to hit. Like I don't think the rocks are going to hit the bottom as much as they're going to hit the left and the right, because the bottom goes straight in and the left and the right kind of go in a little bit at an angle. So I definitely like this angle better on this camera shot than the other side. It's too bad, back then when I recorded this video, that I didn't have the GoPro on my head, because we'd get some really great shots then. So I'm just lifting up on the material, pulling back on it a little bit, putting that extra tension on it to make sure that I don't fold over or crease the material. I'm trying to get that tension real even on there. That's why I took my second hand and spread my fingers out on that material. I wanted to get the tension real even to make sure that we didn't have any fingers or anything like that when I went to squeegee it out. I don't know if anybody else does that either, but it's probably a bad habit where I put a little bit of spit on my finger in order to get it to slide across the material when I'm trying to tuck in an area that doesn't have any slip solution on it. Well, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad habit, but it probably doesn't look great on the video. So you could actually bring your relief cuts further out, which would then make this a lot easier to install, but I wanted to get them as far back as possible. And so that makes these edges more difficult, or these corners here, it makes it much more difficult to get those to stick down because there is so much tension on them. They just want to continually pop back up. Now with all the slip that I just put on that, I'd be surprised if that stayed down at all. Yeah, definitely gonna have to go for more tack here. Sometimes you get lucky. Alright, so that area is starting to look pretty good. Looks like we're going to move on to the side marker or blinker. Don't cut it short. Wouldn't this be a terrible time to have to start over? Oh my goodness. My head would explode. I don't know if you guys ever noticed this about me, but I'm bald. A lot of the times now I'm wearing a hat in the videos. It also helps with the GoPro holding it on my head. It's more comfortable if I've got some extra padding there. But yeah, minimal hair on the top there. I once had a barber tell me that grass doesn't grow on busy streets. So I guess that was just saying that my brain's got a lot going on. I'm thinking a lot. Anyway, I took it as a compliment. I'm sure he meant it that way. Barber insulting me while he's cutting my hair. Wouldn't that be great? Alright, lots of tack solution, and we'll go ahead and start pushing this up to that blinker. Man, the GoPro footage on top of my head would be great right now. So my goal with these lights here is to not have any relief cuts. So I want full coverage in here. I want to take all of this, round it in, and take it all back to the light. There we go again. Slip and stick. Spit and stick? I don't know. What do you guys want to call that move? Anybody? Anybody else use that move? I hope I'm not alone. So I think what I'm actually doing there when I'm lifting up on that is actually unattaching it from that blinker, the face of the blinker, so that I can tuck it in. Not quite sure how I missed these couple spots when I was editing this video by me walking away from the camera. So maybe I'm going to do the same thing as I did last time, where I tuck that in with the towel. And then leave it in there. It's just a good idea to dry up all those edges. That'll help things from popping back up. Spit and stick. This light doesn't seem to wiggle around as much as the other one did. The other one had a lot more play where I could tuck things in. Well, I got the blade out, so I must be doing just a little bit of trimming in order to keep that edge from popping up. So it looks like I'm cutting just on the face of the blinker light there. So I must have lifted the material up just a little bit, trimmed it, and then now pushing it down and then running a towel over it is what's going to help that stay stuck down. Interesting, I'm going to jump to this part instead of just finishing off that light. So from this angle here, you can actually kind of see where I tacked on the other side to the bumper before I did the stretch. It's just right around that edge into the wheel well, and then I just made sure that nothing on the face of the bumper was actually stuck down. It was just into the wheel well area. Just checking for tension there. It's really tucked way back in there. Having a hard time getting it back out. I must have left a little bit of moisture. Alright, now that I've got it figured out where it ends on the material. It probably left a little mark on the adhesive on the material. Now I can go ahead and trim it and then get it to stick right down without having to go back and cut off that excess once it's pushed into place. Also, from this angle you can see where I've tucked the material in to the recess between the bumper and the fender. So I'm just making sure I've got all the moisture out of those edges. I'm not leaving any water bubbles behind. Pressing areas down like this with your finger can be so much easier than trying to get a squeegee in there. It's almost impossible. So at one of the ends of my relief cuts there, it must be popping up just a little bit. So just going back and doing a little bit more finish work there. The other thing that's nice about this film, well, and some people think it's nice, some people think that it makes it really difficult to work with, is that it has a very aggressive adhesive. So just pushing it with my finger like that with some tack solution underneath it, it's going to really help it stay down into place. It's something that I just had gotten used to over time. And so I like a film with a more aggressive adhesive. So the premium shield is something else we've worked with a lot. The premium shield Next Gen has a pretty aggressive adhesive, as well as the what's that other one we've been using? The SunTech Ultra Tack. Alright, so let's take care of this license plate area. So basically we just want to round in just a little bit around the edge. Start by doing a nice wide cut, relieve some of this tension, and then we'll come back and get a closer cut. You can see I'm adding some slip solution here, and that's because that material has had time to dry in there, so as I move it around, there's a good possibility some of it can pre-tack on you. And since it's dry, it's going to stick down real quick. Looks like I'm getting a little bit closer now on my cut, so hopefully what that's going to mean is this will be my final cut, and we'll just wrap this in. Tack solution time. Looks like I must have left a little bit of moisture behind, so I'm going to go ahead and pull the material back just a tiny bit and get that taken care of. Now you would think at this point here, coming up pretty quick, I'm going to need some more tack solution because it's definitely going to be, well, I think it's going to be necessary to get that to stick down. I don't know, some of that's sticking down pretty good, but these corners are a little tight. There we go. Tedious little areas, so easy to leave some slip solution or tack solution behind. Yeah, this side just isn't staying down the same as the other without some tack. And just take your time getting over that corner, over that edge. Make sure you're getting everything out of there. And just work your way over little by little by little, and then eventually get that all tacked down. So this squeegee is made by Fusion. It's actually not a squeegee I use anymore. We switched over to the, I don't actually even know what they're called, but the squeegees with the tapered edge that comes more to a point, that are single color. Get rid of some of this excess. Looks like I'm trying to get rid of even more excess in that corner. There's no point in when you're wrapping this into bumping into the back. That's just going to be too much, and you're going to end up leaving little air pockets and things on that back recessed edge. So definitely make sure you cut it short enough that you're not bumping that back wall, the back face there. really kind of need to do a swipe here and get rid of a bunch of that slip solution that's in there. Or tack solution is probably what's mostly in there now. There it starts to come out. A couple little fingers still trying to pop up over there on the left. Get some more tack underneath those. We're getting there. We're getting pretty close. And then we'll be able to start working on the license plate cover. Kind of interesting, it has a license plate cover. I mean, how many vehicles do you guys see? Oh, see there, I finally did a swipe to get rid of some of that excess solution out of there. You know, how many vehicles do you guys see that have license plate covers? Blow out some of the excess. I don't know what that move would be called either. Let's dry those edges up so they stay nice and stuck down. Looks like we got a little bit of material popping up right here. Alright, so it looks like there's a little something underneath the material right here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it back and pick that out. So we're going to get some slip solution in there to make sure that once it is broken loose from the material that it's able to slip out instead of just re-sticking. Fortunately, I didn't really peel up much of the corners there. Left and right, so it's able to just push right back down with that slip solution instead of needing to throw some more tack in there. Alright, so let's see how far we can get this to stretch underneath the bumper. The further the better, but obviously at some point we're going to start leaving fingers. So you can see here I'm going to put a little tension on it with my one hand, and then I'll squeegee with my other hand. And we just want to get this back as far as we can. So I'm just taking it back as far as obviously as it'll let me, and until the material kind of starts crinkling up and folding over on itself, like the fingers just start pushing over onto themselves. and you kind of start wrinkling the film up, and then that'll be the area that I trim, you know, right in front of those. Oh, I gotta get a lift in here. Still don't have a lift. This would be so much better if it was up in the air. How many years do you have to do this before you get a lift? Oh my gosh. It's time. It's time. How about this? Within the next 6 months, I'll have a lift. Yeah, that's pretty far under there. That's going to be great. Oh, I'm going to give even a little bit more pressure on that material. See if I can convince it to go back just a little bit further. That Bondo card is super rigid. So let's see if I add a little bit more stretch to it and try pushing it back. And then this doesn't get trimmed until tomorrow in this video, so I know, you know, what's going to stick and what isn't going to stick by the following morning by what popped up, and then go ahead and just trim on the area that did stay stuck down. Must have found a little water pocket there. Just guessing. Alright, yeah. So this just sits here overnight and then come back in the morning and take care of that grill. Or not grill, but the license plate cover. Alright, so what I did here is laid some transfer tape over the top of this, and then I'm going to use a pencil just to kind of make an outline here just of the lettering so that I can go ahead and cut around that. You could just lay a piece of material over the top of this and do it that way. I just wanted to get real close in some of these areas to the lettering, and so you could do it like this, or you could just lay a piece of material over it, let the piece of material dry, and then trim it at that point. But when you do it like this, you don't have to do any of the cutting on the paint, and it came out real clean. So I could see doing it either way. I don't know that really necessarily one way is better than the other way. This just eliminates me having to do all the trimming on the paint after the material is cured. Just make sure that you're getting all the way out to the edge of the material when you're going around the edge like that. Alright, so let's go ahead. We're going to lay this onto a scrap piece of material and then go ahead and cut this out. So I'm pretty much cutting right on the line there. That way we're not wrapping around the edge too much. Dive down into the V there. So if you were to cut this out on the car, you might even be able to do a little bit more intricate cutting than I'm going to be doing right here. Let's see if I go up in between the C and the T. Nope, doesn't look like it. That cutting in between the C and the T would be, something that wouldn't have been a bad idea either, instead of leaving that blank. Alright, so let's go ahead and get this cleaned up and get this installed. Oh my gosh, should I call that a C and a T? I think I called that a C and a T in Corvette. I probably could have went up in between the E and the T, and then in between the two T's, and then the other T and the E, and given even some added protection. I'm not sure why I didn't do that. That seems like something that something you should do. I don't think this customer was planning on running this plate cover, but that doesn't mean that wouldn't have been a good area to leave there and just squeegeed it out and had coverage. So I'm just lining up the letters really well, and then we'll squeegee that part out first, and then we'll work on squeegeeing out to the edges. So as you can see, I did leave it a little long on the sides there, at least far as all the way around on the outside edge. And that's so I can do just a little bit of wrapping and then don't have to worry about it getting chipped up on those edges. Get some tack solution in there. You can see I'm kind of working that finger off to the left and off to the left and off to the left until eventually it pretty much just goes away. I sure do like the new squeegees better that you see me using in my videos than this one here. So I'm going to go ahead and dry some of that out and really get that to stick down. Checking all the edges, checking for any moisture left behind. Looks like we'll go ahead and fire up the heat gun now, and then we will go ahead and heat seal the edges on this. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to go around the Corvette lettering at this point. That'll probably be left for tomorrow, but I want to make sure and get all the sides down. Make sure that they don't pop up overnight. I've also switched over to using brown gloves instead of this ghost glove. I find that that ghost glove gets dirty fairly easily, as it does, of course, which makes white, so that makes sense that that would happen. But for no other reason than just because that looks better in a video than wearing a dirty glove. Or a glove anyway that appears to be dirty. Now look at me, I'm going to go all the way right now. Just get the Corvette taken care of. I really appreciate you guys taking a look at this video, and I hope you found something helpful. This is a pretty tough bumper, and that's a fairly good demonstration of what it takes to get paint protection on it. If you did find something helpful, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Here's the final product the next day. out in front of the body shop that had painted it. The customer was ecstatic with it, so it really came out great. We just took the paint protection film off of this Corvette, and I'm taking some paint off with it. It was a really bad paint job, and it's at the shop next door to get paint. So we weren't concerned about it, but I tell you, it never feels good when you rip paint off a car.